This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Bill Fick Ford, the Wcra, and Pendleton Whiskey. Born in the iconic American western town of Pendleton, Oregon, and taking its name from one of the most revered rodeos in the world, my absolute favorite rodeo, known for the grass, the Pendleton Roundup. Pendleton Whiskey is a modern celebration of a century-old tradition. Pendleton Whiskey is barrel-aged in American oak and cut with glacier-fed spring water from Oregon's Mount Hood. For an uncommonly smooth, rich taste and complex flavor, the Pendleton Whiskey brand honors a heritage that inspires us to live boldly, never lose sight of the values we believe in, and taste the moment, wherever we may be. The legacy of the American cowboy is forged in every single bottle. A taste of true Western tradition is always worth raising a glass to. Discover more at pendletonwhiskey.com. Oh, and Pendleton Whiskey is the official whiskey of Pro Rodeo and of the PBR. Pendleton Blended Canadian Whiskey, 40% alcohol by volume, Pendleton Distilleries, Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Please drink responsibly. Bill Fick Ford, the #1 Super Duty dealer in the entire country, is still taking care of their customers. It's hard to get trucks right now, but there's some perks when you're the #1 Super Duty dealer in the country. You still got trucks. Go to BillFickFordHuntsville.com to get the no bull discounts that no one else is giving during this crazy time that we're living in. Bill Fick Ford is still the place to go. In fact, if you ask me, it's the only place to get a new Super Duty dealer today. Bill Fick Ford. Who wants to be Rodeo's next millionaire? It's time. That time again through the WCRA. You can win $1 million by nominating your rides or runs and earning points through the WCRA. Through the Triple Crown of Rodeo, the WCRA will award $1 million in cash prizes to any one athlete or collection of athletes who wins first place in any 3 consecutive WCRA major rodeos. $1 million is completely up for grabs. The Days of 47 Cowboy Games and Rodeo will be the second stop of the 2021 Triple Crown of Rodeo Series. The event will pay out over $560,000 and will be held July 20th through the 24th in Salt Lake City. Get this, there will be 0 entry fees, people. You heard me correctly. No entry fees. The only way to qualify for the Triple Crown of Rodeo event is by nominating your rides and runs with the WCRA. Use promo code GAUGE10 for 10% off your next nomination. Again, that promo code is GAUGE10 for 10% off your next nomination. To learn more, just visit WCRArodeo.com and learn how you can earn a spot at the Days of 47 Rodeo and possibly be Rodeo's next millionaire. What?
This is The Gauge with host Chance Conradu.
Are you freaking serious? It's Conrado. This is The Gauge, and I am Chance Conrado. On this episode of the podcast, we have got Mark Geist. Mark is one of the authors of 13 Hours. You may have seen the movie called 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi. Well, he's one of the authors of the book because he's one of the characters in that movie. Mark fought that battle, was wounded in combat, and has lived to tell the story time and time again on every major outlet you could imagine. He spent a ton of time with Michael Bay developing the movie, of course, wrote the book. And yeah, Mark grew up rodeoing just like me, just like most of you. And it's the perfect hook for him to be here, and we're so grateful that he was. He recounts the entire story, and we get into all kinds of things. In typical Gauge fashion, this is legendary, and you know how we do it. Check out part 1 now. And you end up finding there's quite a few unique people out there who have that background, and they don't really mention it.
It is amazing, especially in my world.
Yeah.
There's more guys like Ty. He was the guy that got killed next to me. That's who Roan's named after, actually.
Mm-hmm.
He rodeoed. He grew up in Oregon, and so
yeah,
he rodeoed and wrestled and
all that.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see how many guys in the special ops community
come from those backgrounds. A lot of them come from that rural farm ranch background. I don't know. You're kind of cut from a little bit different cloth when you come from that.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it also is, when it comes to PTSD, or I don't call it PTSD because it's just PTS, but
right.
I think there's probably, growing up farming and ranching, you see the beginning of life and you see the end of life a lot.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
especially on the ranching side and the cattle side.
Yeah, and I think that has a lot to do with it because you understand that there's going to be life and death in things.
Yeah.
One of the first, I remember it, I don't know, I was 6 or 7 years old, and it was the first time I helped my grandfather pull a calf.
Yeah.
I was walking down and saw it in the pasture, this cow that had 4 legs coming out of its butt, is the way I saw it,
right.
At that age.
Yeah, babies come out the butt. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I'm like, I knew that wasn't right, so hey, Grandpa, we got a problem out here.
Yep.
We saved the cow but lost the calf, but, it was, at that age, you learned that kind of thing, and I think that makes a big difference on.
It really does, yeah. Or just having rudimentary concepts of stuff like that.
Yeah,
really, really helps. I think. Well, I mean, if you're going to be any type of an operative, or they're plugged in, they're ready to go.
Are they? Okay.
Yep. I think. I don't want to say calloused is maybe not the right word, but durable, more durable than your average suburb child, maybe.
Yeah. I think. That's a good word, durable.
Yeah.
Because you've just been exposed to so much more.
Yeah. Well, and you have to work so much harder.
Yeah.
Because if you got parents who make a living doing that, they don't let you off the hook for nothing.
Oh, no. My grandmother, she got injured in a car wreck and was crippled up. She had one leg that was 3 inches shorter than the other. And
she had the shoe that was a little off.
But she milked 4 milk cows every morning and every night by hand until she was probably 65, and then Grandpa finally figured, I might get her a milking machine. But she didn't.
So no sympathy from him, huh?
No. Well, and I think it all came from her anyways, because if you got the milking machine, you have more to clean.
Right.
It makes the milking easier, but you still have to clean everything, and that takes more time than.
That makes sense. Yeah, I bet she was a hard ass, wasn't she?
Oh yeah, she was, and she had a garden that was probably half the size of a football field.
Holy shit.
And she grew everything. Any of the extra milk she took to town and sold it to the creamery, and eggs and.
Where was this? Was it in Colorado?
Yeah. You know where Ordway's at?
Ordway. What's the next closest town to it? Is there one?
Rocky Ford.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So if you go east on Highway 50 and you run into Rocky Ford, Highway 70 runs from Rocky Ford up north to Lyman.
Yeah.
So Ordway is 12 miles north of Rocky Ford.
Yep. Okay, I do know. So yeah, so east side.
Yeah. That's where my great-grandfather settled down there in 1910.
No kidding.
And
of all the places in Colorado to settle. Yeah.
Well, back then it was, so you had Otero County and Crowley County, and Crowley County had over 2,000 kids in their school district at the time, because it was all sugar beet farming down there.
Right.
And 90% of the people that came over and immigrated were immigrating from either Germany or they were German Russians.
Right.
And because they had sugar beet factories up and down the valley there.
Right. Yeah. It is an interesting area. When I was growing up, a lot of our junior rodeos were on the eastern slope. Mm-hmm. So I got to see a lot of that.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things. If you've seen Nebraska and Kansas, you kind of seen eastern Colorado a little bit.
Yeah. That's what people are like, where are you from? I'm like, when they say where the buffalo roam? Yeah, that's where it's at.
That's there. Yeah. You think Colorado and you think mountains and streams. That's not eastern Colorado.
No.
Yeah, it's different. It's kind of like everything west of I-25 or east of I-25, it changes. It kind of looks like Texas. It all kind of looks like that.
Yeah, especially the Panhandle.
It does.
But I always think about it because, coming across, you got what do you have there? You have the Santa Fe Trail that comes right through there, and Bent's Fort is built down there. When I was a kid in grade school, Bent's Fort didn't, just the foundation existed.
Oh, really?
And in like 74, 75 is when they rebuilt it back to the way it was.
Sure.
But, there's some ranches down there that you can still see the wagon ruts.
Oh, no
where
kidding.
the Santa Fe Trail is.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense because they've probably only got 4 or 5 inches of rain out there since.
Yeah. That is true.
That's how it is out there. Well, Mark, I'm glad that you're here, and I know there's a lot to talk about. And it's been some time since, your book and then the whole movie and everything that kind of had to do with Benghazi. But what's interesting about our specific audience is they all come from the most part backgrounds like you and I come from, but you get very patriotic people, especially with, kind of the turn of events of the last year. Everybody's in a certain state of mind, and it just feels like a really good time to kind of revisit something like that, because it was a pivotal moment, and obviously it got a lot of attention during the first election. We just got through the second one of that cycle. And anyway, if you could kind of tell everybody in the audience who you are, and so they can figure out why we're here talking.
Yeah, definitely. And it's amazing that next year is the 10th year anniversary.
Yeah. 2012 was 10 years ago. That's painful. It's really painful for me. It was like my first year in college. It was very painful. Second year in college, but painful.
Yeah, it just makes me feel really old.
Yeah, it makes you feel really old. I'm about to break into the third decade of my life, and so I'm in a catastrophic place of depression.
Is that what you're calling it now? The third decade of your life, make it seem smaller?
Well, if you think about it, like back in the time he was just talking about with the Santa Fe Trail or any trail, I mean, that was like the end of the line. There wasn't a whole lot after that. So thank God for modern food and water and all those things.
Well, and you think of traveling back then. Yeah. I mean, because you with oxen pulling a wagon, you travel about 8 miles a day.
Yeah,
and
8 miles.
8 miles a day. And if you had mules, you were doing 12, 14 maybe.
Yeah, could you imagine doing a show like you flew into DFW, you went over to the Hilton, right? Mm-hmm. So what's that? What's that, like 22 miles?
Yeah.
It's a 3-day trip for you?
Yeah, 3 days.
This is a real commitment.
Yeah. Unless you're on horseback. If you're on horseback, you could probably make it in a day.
Probably could.
A long day.
Yeah, it would be that.
For comparison, Oregon Trail took like 4 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
And they were probably thinking they made good time.
Yeah. Well, and I always think about it coming, because you can see the mountains from the Kansas border in Colorado.
On a clear day, absolutely.
And
not anymore because everything's on fire nonstop.
Well, yeah, that's true. But you imagine coming across there and you're sitting there thinking, hey, there's those mountains they talked about. Man, we're almost there.
Yeah.
And you still have like a month worth of traveling to do.
You got a ration for a month to go to the mountains?
You're looking at those mountains for a whole month.
Yeah.
Are we getting closer?
Yeah, every week it's like they're a little bigger.
Yeah.
8 miles. Wow. I know people who jog 8 miles for fun in the morning before work. Psychopaths.
There ain't nothing fun about running.
No. No. Yeah, that's what I said. They're psychopaths. It's like I could think of, I like going to the gym and doing all that, but running, no. Someone's like, you got to run 8 miles or your child dies. I'm already planning the name for the new child. Forget it.
I like that one.
You being a military man, you had your fill of running.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah. And, I mean, I was good at it, but just never. I think mine was just being competitive. I mean,
really,
you put somebody in front of me and tell me I couldn't catch them, and it's like, yeah, okay, I'm going to beat that. I'm going to make sure I beat them.
Yeah.
But
yeah, well, with you in specific, what was it? I mean, you've obviously talked about these things 100 times on Fox News and all these different things, but it's been a little while since kind of this all was in the limelight. Mm-hmm. And what was it that, like, you were growing up where you grew up doing the ranch thing with your family, and you're just telling me recently that you rode rough stock and did all of that, which is kind of the hook on why you're here and talking to our audience, because it's a perfect tie-in. Like, man, look what this guy went through. Oh, and look where he came from, the same place we all came from. So it's really unique. But when was it you decided you wanted to be in the military?
I'm probably. I don't know if I ever really decided I was gonna be in the military. Heck, we had GI Joes,
right?
We didn't have Ken dolls. We had GI Joes that had kung fu grip and guns and all of the cool stuff that you should have as a kid, right?
As a little kid, yeah.
Yeah, but my grandfather served in World War II. He was a tank commander, and I think he was really kind of my hero. And he never really talked a lot about it, but I knew that he'd
nobody
served.
From that generation did they?
No, And I never really realized how much he had done until after I got his shadow box, which has all his medals and everything in it. And he had 5 Purple Hearts, Silver Star, Bronze Star, was in North Africa. So he was a tank commander. So he was in North Africa, fought in Patton's army there. He fought in the Battle of the Bulge, pushing across Germany.
Holy hell.
Yeah, and that's
so he's an absolute savage.
Yeah. Yeah, so anytime I get injured, now I understand why he would, his rule number one is don't be a wuss.
Right.
And so now I know where it came from, but he was really kind of my hero. And then I had 3 uncles that served during Vietnam, 1 in the Marine Corps and then 2 in the Navy. And I think that was just kind of where it probably fell into. Because I think I knew I didn't want to go to college. I was either going to go work on a ranch somewhere in cowboy, or I was going to join the military. And everyone said the Marine Corps was the hardest. They had the best looking uniforms, so I figured I better just go do that.
Yeah. Yeah. What was it? Was it kind of a shock for you when you got to basic training and all that from where you had come from, or?
Not really, because I knew what my uncle went through. My uncle was in the Marine Corps from 58 to 68.
Yeah.
So he went through boot camp in 1958. So when I went to boot camp and they didn't beat my ass every day, I thought I was doing really good.
Because he probably talked to you about all of it. Here's what's to expect there, Buster.
And I'm sure he probably, he amped it up too to make it worse than what it probably really was. But, because he's like, if you want to do it, do it. But this is what you're going to be in store for. And So
you went in, and then you were pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. I mean, they only hit me every now and then.
Well, bars of soap when you were sleeping kind of thing, probably.
Yeah, we used to have this one drill instructor. We had what he called foot locker rifle drill. Mm-hmm. So instead of doing regular rifle drill with a rifle, you did it with your foot locker and full.
Really?
Yeah. So that was always fun.
Yeah. Where did you do your basic training?
San Diego.
San Diego?
Yeah. Yeah, I was a Hollywood Marine.
Yeah, one of the better places to go and do that.
Yeah, I think, though you get to sit there and see the airplanes take off every day and every night.
Yeah.
Thinking, okay, wait, it's the longest 3 months of your life, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're just counting down to be able to leave.
Yep.
And then, so how many, did you do tours right after that, or did you go home, or did you go to a base?
I went from there, had I think a week, maybe 10 days of leave. As I was heading to North Carolina to go to infantry training school. It was ITS then. Mm-hmm. And then that was, I think, 4 weeks or something like that. And then from there, I got shipped out to the Philippines. So I spent the next year and a half in the Philippines.
That's not the worst place, I guess.
No, not for a young 18-year-old boy that's coming out of the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, might as well be Thailand, huh?
Yeah.
You probably don't have to watch out for the same things in the Philippines that you do Thailand.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit?
Yeah, because you have 3 bases there, and especially back then, and again, I had heard of it through my uncle, because that's where he would go on leave when he was in Vietnam.
Sure.
But that was back when they still had, they had dirt streets.
Yeah.
But, you walk out past, you cross the bridge, and it's called Shit River, and there was a reason why they call it that, because all the sewage from the whole town goes right into there, and it goes out to the South China Sea.
Really?
And so you have, from there, the next, I don't know, probably 3/4 of a mile until it comes to a T intersection is nothing but bars on both sides of the road. I mean, stacked 3 stories high.
Right.
And so just about anything and everything you can have out there.
For not very much money.
Yeah.
What I've been told in that part of the world.
Yeah, it was, I think the average is $1 was transferred into 20 pesos. Yeah. And if you lived out in, like me and a buddy of mine, we ended up renting a house out in town. It cost us $60 a month for a 3-bedroom house. Whoa. And we were kind of away from the mainstream stuff, because after a while being there, the polish kind of dulls a little bit on the main street kind of area. So you just, you're used to it. So you go to the back streets, and where we lived, there was not very many other Americans, and we could walk around. I mean, you get a beer for 3 pesos and 25 centavos. Yeah. So like a nickel and a half, right. 12 cents or something like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What were you doing there though?
I was there with it was called barracks duty, because there was it was security forces, and we provided security for special weapons on the naval installation.
Okay.
So Subic Bay was a place where the Navy ships had come in. A lot of the nuclear weapons and or the nuclear ships, like the aircraft carriers and stuff, that's where they would refuel or do things. And so any kind of weapons that they had, we were
Providing
stored.
the security.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so it kind of makes sense why you ended up contracting and doing private security.
Yeah.
Because that's just what you knew.
Yep. Yeah.
So who were you protecting it from, like pirate type characters or things like that?
A little bit of both. In the Philippines back then, they had a group. It was called the NPA, the New People's Army. It was a communist kind of
Militia type thing.
group that would try to sneak on base and steal stuff. And I mean, it's the economy there is very bad. And, so anything that isn't nailed down or protected, or locked up is going to get carried away a lot of times. So we would run patrols out in the jungles, and we had up and down the rivers and set kind of.
Was the Philippines semi-socialist back in those days?
No, it was it was an elected government, but it was Marcos who was the elected, and he had been there forever. So it was a little bit totalitarian. But, and then he got ousted when
like they all do.
Eventually. And that kind of changed a little bit more pro-democracy. But now, and
they have elections there now, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, there's 1,600 islands that make up the Philippines.
Yeah.
And I know, like, if you get further south, that's where you have Mindanao and Cebu, and those islands have a lot of infiltration from Muslims.
Yeah.
And it's because it's close to Singapore, and it comes up through that way.
Sure. And so did you after you did that, did you go on another tour? How long did you stay, like, in the service of the Marines?
I was in for 12 years.
Oh, so you stayed for quite some time.
Yeah.
So you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did. I didn't think I'd ever get out, honestly. I mean, because I went back to the States. I was back home. Then I was with an infantry unit. We went back overseas probably 3 months later. So I was home for about 3 months, went back to overseas, back to the Far East, Japan, Philippines again, Korea, all over the place over there. Then I actually changed jobs and went into training security forces and counterterrorism and anti-terrorism teams for a while.
Yeah.
And then I re-enlisted my third time. And then the third time I re-enlisted, I did another career change into being an interrogator translator.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was kind of neat because, I mean, you take all kinds of battery tests when you join the Marine Corps. And I had done real well on they call it the D-Lab Defense Language Battery Test.
Sure.
And, or aptitude battery or something like that. And so
Which basically says, hey, can you keep a level head and articulate to somebody under stress?
Yeah, and you can learn a language.
Huh?
So they judge how well you can learn languages. And so I went to school in Monterey, California for 14 months to learn Persian Farsi.
Wow.
Which is what they speak in Iran.
Yeah.
A little bit of Afghanistan speaks that. And so the Kurdish language is very similar as well.
So you can pick up, it's almost like if you know really, really good Spanish, you can kind of flow with Portuguese a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of that same kind of concept.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And so when you were doing it's funny talking about interrogation because Lieutenant Colonel Alan West was supposed to come on the show, and we've always just kind of had a cross with scheduling, kind of like we did with you the first time.
Yeah.
But and I never forget, he ended his military career because of what they deemed a bad interrogation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever have any like really stressful situations where you might have to breach accords or things like that to get the information you needed?
Most of the time, not really, because my time in the Marine Corps, it was peacetime
peacetime?
Most of it. We had the first Gulf War, but I mean, that lasted 100 days.
Was it in the 90s or?
Yeah. So there wasn't a lot of that. We did a lot of debriefs and things like that, which, and most of it is, especially when, people talk about interrogation, most of it is when you have a POW or a prisoner of war, they're so scared about what their perceived mental state, what they think is going to happen to them.
Sure.
I mean, there's no need to really have any physical torture or anything, or stress positions or anything, because 99.9% of the time they're going to tell you everything they want anyways.
Yeah. His was so interesting because I mean it sounds just like a movie where he fires a pistol over his head to try to get the information to save ground troops. Like that's got to be like a 1 in a million interrogation, huh?
Yeah.
But I always found it interesting because of course he got discharged for it and all that, and
yeah, it is. Well, and it's like the whole Abu Ghraib thing, and it's whoever. If I was an interrogator working there, I would have beat the crap out of the guards who were messing with the prisoners, because that's not their job.
Right.
Those weren't interrogators doing that. Those were a bunch of punk kids that just had poor supervision.
Yeah.
That were doing stuff that they shouldn't have been doing. And I mean, because as an interrogator, there's a way to get people to tell you stuff that without having to do any of that stuff. And when people like that get in and mess it up, because that's what they do.
Or just infantry grunt type kids, or
if that. I mean, they may have been just MPs, military police, and you got a 18, 19, 20-year-old over there. All they do is sit there and look at these prisoners all day long. They get bored.
Right.
And if you don't, it's idle hands.
Right. No, absolutely. So when your tenure in the military was up, you went to be a police officer after that, correct?
Yeah, I got out, become a deputy sheriff in Teller County, Colorado.
Yeah.
Started out as a road deputy for a little bit, and then a job came open.
Teller County, that's like Woodland Park.
Yep, Woodland Park, Cripple Creek. Yeah.
Yeah. We got a cabin in Cripple Creek.
Okay.
I knew that. Just like, that's Teller County. That's an interesting place to be.
Yeah. So you've probably been to Victor, Colorado.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what they say about Victor, right? This is probably going to be totally inappropriate.
Yeah, this is a very inappropriate show.
You know what you get when you line up all the women in Victor?
What do you get?
One full set of teeth.
Yeah. You ever go to the casinos there in Cripple Creek, and you'll see very quickly that there's a reason all the drinks are free.
Yep.
It's a rough place.
Yeah, and Victor's, it's a great town. A lot of great people there. But that was always the joke.
Yeah, their number one export is methamphetamine, after all.
Yep.
Well, people get bored up there in the mountains. Gold mines aren't really as much of a thing as they used to be. No. What are they going to do?
Yeah, there's only one big gold mine up there, and it's so technology has advanced so far into how they do that it's not like it used to be.
No, yeah. It's my wife's parents who have the cabin. And it's like, it's okay up there, but it's like not my favorite place.
Yeah.
How long did you do that?
I was up there for about 3 years.
Really?
And the last two and a half, I mainly did worked crimes against children.
Oh, wow.
And family crimes, that kind of thing. So
sure.
Which and it's that one job that no one wants to do, but I think I got more. And I think just the way I approached it, I got more. I can't say pleasure, but I got
satisfaction out of it.
Satisfaction of being able to help those. I mean, the weakest of those that can't have children. They don't have anybody to help them. And I was blessed. The Lord blessed me with being able to get kids to tell me stuff they should never have to tell anybody.
And you were able to get them out of those situations.
Yeah, and that was really because my goal was to make sure that they didn't ever have to tell that story in court.
Right.
So if I could get a good, solid interview with them that was beyond reproach, I knew I could get a confession out of the perpetrator as well, because most of them they want to tell this. They want to tell it anyways. You just got to orchestrate how they're going to do it and give them an out. And 99% of them never went to court because you had a confession, and they're just going to plead to something.
Yeah. So, and most of those are abuse cases of every nature, I'm sure. And things like that. Yeah. It is. Kids get treated really strange in places like that, where there's not a lot of. And when you think of Colorado, you almost have a mindset of mild affluence just because of the way it is in the Front Range and what have you. But when you get out into those type of places, they're pretty beatnik. It's rough. It's
different.
Yeah,
there's some. I mean, you get back in there into some of those back roads up into the mountains, and find some of those small little valleys up there. And I mean, people don't come to town but a few times a year.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're just different. It's the only way you can say it, different.
And you hit on it. I mean, with the drugs and things like that are, were prevalent. I can't say they are now because I don't know, but that were prevalent with meth and all of that.
Absolutely is. Yeah.
It's that adds to it. I mean, it's not surprising in a sense because you look at, one of the biggest things that we combat in this country right now on the southern border down here is human trafficking.
Yeah. For whatever reason, though, no one wants to talk about anything going on the southern border right now, other than our previous president for some reason. But he doesn't have a Twitter to go on anymore for whatever. Where'd that go?
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean,
you remember the days where the worst things we had to, I saw this somewhere. The worst thing we had to worry about was someone being mean on Twitter.
Yeah. I think Don Jr. Posted something like that.
That might have been him. Yeah. Something.
Can we go back to the days when all I got to worry about is my dad waking up and posting something, an inappropriate ridiculous Twitter or something that offended somebody? It's like,
now if you have a truck, it costs you $110 to fill it up.
Yeah.
It was like 50. It might have been even less. There was a time right before the election, like, how you go to the King Supers or whatever, and you buy all your groceries, you get the fuel points.
Yeah.
It's like there was a time where I filled up with diesel. It might have been my wife's, whatever it was. And it was like $1.10.
I had, it
was like last year.
I think because I think on like King Supers you can max out at $1, and it was and I think it was something like that. The same thing. It was, I couldn't believe it took me like $45 or something like that to fill up my truck.
Crazy.
Yeah. And now it's 98.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a cycle. It was the same thing. It was the same thing when Obama became president. I'm not sure what it is with high gas prices and Democratic leadership and low gas prices and Republican leadership, but it makes a big difference in your average person's life. They go from spending $250 a month to like $500 a month in gas. It completely limits what like a normal average person's able to do.
Well, you think about, in the rodeo world.
Absolutely.
I mean,
it changes everything.
Yeah. Because you're driving everywhere.
Yep.
And, most people don't really, I know most of the listeners here probably do, but most people out there in the world have no idea what it takes to rodeo.
The cost is astronomical.
Yeah, you're on the road and the rough stock guys probably have it the easiest because
by far
none of them, as cowboy as they are, most of them probably don't drive a truck anywhere from point A to point B because it's too expensive.
Yeah, a lot of them fly around, and even if they are, there's four of them in a truck together, and they're staying in a Capri camper or something like that.
Yeah,
they're not driving a Peterbilt with a 50-foot living quarters behind it, getting 4.2 miles per gallon.
Yeah,
Yeah. My sister on her truck, she's got a big reserve tank, like a 75, 80 gallon reserve tank, and every time you fill that sucker up, it's like in the best of times it was like $300-400. Now like $5,000-6,000 to go from here to Panoka or something like that. It's crazy.
We had just did a kind of offshoot. We did a dog demo and gave a service dog over to a veteran out at Carolina Country Music Fest out in Myrtle Beach, and I drove out with our merchandise trailer and our dog trailer and all that. And I had a young kid riding with me, kind of a shotgun, and we pulled up to one of the truck stops to fill up, and he looked over and he says it was like $1,600 for that truck to fill up.
Yeah.
And people wonder why milk costs a little bit more.
Yeah.
Or a lot more.
Well, and then add the fact that people don't want to drive trucks anymore.
Yeah.
No one wants that job, but there's a massive shortage. One, they're unappreciated as a just a job in itself, and taking a government check and the unemployment plus the extra, it's like better than driving a semi all night.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and especially now, they've, government regulation has kind of limited their ability to make good money because
of the logbooks.
Yeah. If anything, what is it? Any truck after 2013 or something like that has a digital logbook.
Yep.
If you get up and move that trailer or that truck too far,
So you're
it
always
starts
behind.
logging. Now you're stuck.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know if bureaucrats come up with this stuff have no bearing of what's going on in the world.
Well, they don't. I think it's all about getting votes.
Yeah.
It's not what the end result is how that's gonna affect the people.
No.
Because they've never. Most of them. I mean, on both sides of the aisle, most of them have never had to dig a ditch or
do anything, really.
I mean, they're career politicians.
Don't you think that's why like a Ron DeSantis in Florida is so popular, because he's not that guy at all?
Yeah. I mean, you got Ron DeSantis, you got from Colorado, the new and upcoming is Lauren Boebert.
Yep.
I mean, she goes everywhere carrying a pistol.
Yeah.
And and she's just a feisty just firecracker, that is not going to take nothing from nobody. But
it's kind of fun, right?
She ran her own business. I mean, that's how it started. She has a restaurant.
Yeah. It's kind of fun to see these real people. I mean, Ron DeSantis was a Navy SEAL, obviously. He was an elite human, but transitioning to literally ran the most successful campaign against the COVID, the whole thing, not just the virus itself, but the whole political ploy that was COVID-19 still is, and came out the most successful out of everybody. Like, he was so influential in what he was doing that this state has been playing. Our governor down here, Abbott, was just trying to catch a little bit of that shine and copy him a little bit. I mean, it's very impressive.
Yeah, that is. And you look at, and you look across the board. I mean, the governor of South Dakota,
Kristi Noem.
I mean, she worked ranches, rodeo,
She's awesome.
did all that stuff. I mean, you've got people that are starting to step into that like it should have been forever.
Yeah.
I mean, who we got down here? In Texas, you've got
we've got Dan Crenshaw.
Dan Crenshaw, who just introduced a great bill.
He did.
To get the airlines to the last holdout of the mask people.
Yeah.
And
he's really caught a lot of attention. It was like he got to go on like the Joe Rogan podcast, and he's done it a couple times and was so well spoken and articulate. And obviously he's got an established military career. But when you get these high level military people and they're really intelligent, highly intelligent like that, they transition into politics so well.
Yeah, they do, and I think it's tremendous that we have people like that for leadership, because, because our politicians, a lot of people talk about leadership, and I don't know a politician that's a leader.
Yeah,
because to be a leader, it's about everybody else that works underneath you, and to be a politician or a manager is about yourself.
Yeah,
I mean, every politician, the moment they get elected, they have to start raising money to get elected again.
Yeah,
And they have no concept of leadership. They've never worked, really done a whole lot in their life other than, you look at those that are the career ones, Nancy Pelosi, Schumer, Biden.
Hey.
I mean, they've been there forever.
Yeah.
And now they've got the plan that's going to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing how they just didn't figure it out the last 49 years.
No. Joe Biden's going on close to 50 years in politics or something out of control like that, and all of a sudden he's the new fresh face. So amazing.
Yeah.
For this country. Yeah. It's like he's changed his ideals more times probably than any other politician, just because he's been alive that much longer.
Yeah.
I bet he has some opinions on carts and buggies. I think that's how he probably got to his first congressional hearing.
Yeah, that is probably true. He voted on the Automobile Safety Act. Probably
he probably did. Yeah. He probably gave Tom Ford his first grant, or Tom Ford with his sunglasses. Henry Ford.
Henry Ford.
But because that kind of brings me full circle to when you decided to be a contractor, right? And that's kind of the big thing that obviously you are known for, is what happened on September 11th, 2012. Which everybody knows as, obviously that great movie, 13 Hours, which was awesome, how all the politicians started sweating when that came out.
Yeah.
Good for Michael Bay on doing it the way he did it. But.
And if it wasn't for Michael Bay, I don't think it would have been made.
Yeah.
I mean, Paramount, it wasn't their favorite thing.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, but Michael Bay has a clause in his contract with Paramount that, and I'm not sure if it's once a year or how often it is, but he gets to make a movie of his choice when he wants to do that. And
And that was the one he chose for that year.
Yeah, because he wanted to do Lone Survivor.
Yeah.
But Peter Berg beat him to get in that. And so he was really looking for one, I think. And then when this came along, it just happened to be right. And he was going to do it. And his mom said, you don't want to do it. It's too political. You don't want to stay away from it. And he said, Mom, here, read the book.
Yeah.
She read the book and she says, Michael, you need to do this movie.
Yeah.
And so I guess maybe it was more up to his mom because his mom approves all the movies, I think.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. How nice. And you got to spend a decent amount of time with him, right? He really seems like for the Hollywood type to be pretty dang level.
He is. He's about making movies and he's about entertaining people and doing it in the best way possible. I mean, he loves our military. I mean, he's done so many movies with our military. Half of the doubles that were in any of the Transformer movies were all former Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them are. Some of the ones that were in our movie that were the stunt doubles were former Navy SEALs that got to play Ty's. I mean, it was a former Navy SEAL that got to play Tyrone Woods' character.
Yeah.
He actually has his name's Beto is what we call him, but he has a company out in San Diego. He makes knives now. It's Half-Face Blades.
Yeah, no, I know. Good luck trying to get one. Yeah, so you watch Half-Face Blades because they'll release them in groups.
Yep.
And it's like trying to buy like one of those new PlayStations or something. So you just sit there and you click. You never get them.
Yeah.
I don't even care that they're $600. Like the fact that you can't get them makes me want them.
Yeah, exactly.
I've yet to get one.
They've got the best tomahawks in the world.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've watched them every cycle and like click. You just can't do it.
Yeah, I killed an alligator with one.
Really?
Yeah.
With the tomahawk or with one of the knives?
Tomahawk.
Really?
Yeah. It was pretty cool.
That sounds badass.
Do you have a picture? You don't have to show me
No,
now,
I don't. Yeah,
was it like, okay, well, hold on.
Because I heard that it was not supposed to happen that way because you're supposed to hit them with a bang stick or something like that.
Yeah.
So
okay, it sounds really cool, but the alligator wasn't this long, right?
No, it was about a 6 or 8 footer.
Okay, never mind. Yep, total badass moment. Yeah.
So
if it was like one of those ones you can get at the pet store, like that story would be less.
Yeah, it would. It would.
If sure you did it wasn't a gecko?
A gecko, a gecko, and I did it with nail clippers.
Yeah. Well, see, anybody can twist the words to make it sound good on a podcast, Mark.
Exactly.
But guys, let me remind you how much we love Pendleton whiskey and how much you'll love it too. Here's the thing with Pendleton. It's not on every single shelf in the entire country. Sometimes you go to those small towns where the small rodeos are and you can't find Pendleton. That's where drizzly.com comes into play. Satisfy your inner cowboy by purchasing your bottle of Pendleton whiskey online. Buy it online at drizzly.com. Put it in the trailer. Pendleton blended Canadian whiskey, 40% alcohol by volume. Pendleton Distilleries, Lawrenceburg, Indiana. And please drink responsibly. Okay, so let's go back. So way back, because one of the things I'm sure you've noticed is we just kind of do this here.
Hey, that's the best way to do it.
I think it is. I think it's the most fun.
Yeah.
But because the whole thing about the Benghazi and the 13 hours and everything that goes along with that is it was highly politicized, right?
It was.
Yeah, in probably the worst way possible because it wasn't like politicizing it for a benefit. It was trying to bury the whole thing because it made a specific person or peoples look like soulless monsters, actually.
Yeah.
At least that's how me as a civilian took it when it happened.
Well, and I think in a sense, I mean, I'm glad that it got that political because had it not, we'd have never heard about it.
Right.
I mean, if it hadn't blown up, because, all of us, after it was over, none of us were thinking about writing a book.
Yeah.
And the rest of the guys went back to work. I had gotten approached by a friend who had a friend that was friends with, kind of a friend of a friend with Ricky Schroeder.
Yeah.
And I first got approached by Ricky Schroeder to do a movie, and it was going to be about my life. It was kind of wanted to be a biography from when I was a kid and how I grew up rodeoing and cowboying and doing all that, and with a part of the Benghazi story ending in it, which is kind of funny because that's how I got introduced to Clint Eastwood, who said, have you written a book? And I'm like, no. He says, well, that's how it's done. You got to go write a book first.
Yeah.
Go write a book, and if it's good, then we can talk about doing a movie. Well, we went and did that, and I got an agent, had a book. I was going to do a book about my whole life, but before I did it, I went to the other guys and I said, hey, I think this would be better if we did it together.
Yeah.
And we just, because I couldn't tell the whole story. I could tell what happened when I was out
from
in
your
town.
side only. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's 5 other people that could tell that part of it. And it just seemed better. And so we all kind of got together and talked about it and decided to do it the way we did. But had that not happened, had it not been politicized and all of that took place, instead of Donald Trump, we might have had Hillary Clinton as a president.
It was one of the key factors that kept her out of the White House. I mean, it truly was. But
and what happened, the thing most people don't probably know is that because of the investigation, because of the Benghazi issue and them starting the investigation into Benghazi, that's how they found out about the email server that was in her basement.
Yeah.
Which I think, it wasn't Benghazi that maybe was the major thing, but it allowed things to happen that led to bigger things that really showed the character or lack of certain individuals.
Yeah. Well, and so just to kind of wrap the whole thing up in a bow that is contextual, can you just kind of recount what happened on that day for you guys? I know you've said that you told a lot. You probably memorized. You actually wrote a book about it. But so it should be very easy to kind of do that. But I think to not do that would be a missed opportunity for the audience.
Oh, I think so too. And that ultimately that's why that's what we're here to talk about, is to share this. I mean, and for a lot of reasons. It's not just about telling the story for me anymore. It's about one, sharing my faith and my patriotism, my sense of dedication to this country and what we are, and hopefully that influences somebody else out there to do the same someday.
I think it absolutely will. If you just play the game of chance, we've got enough people who listen to this. It's going to be like a lot of them, probably. It's going to be a lot of young enlistees coming up in the next half decade.
Yeah, well, we need them. With where the military's going, we need some hard chargers out there. But it was September 11th, 2012. I worked for a group called GRS. It was Global Response Staff, as a private security contractor. And I'd actually been working as a private security contractor for different companies for, by that time, about 6-7 years. And I got on with them, and it was really because I didn't have to work as much and got paid a little bit better.
Yeah, so a lot better in the contracting field than being an enlistee.
Right. Well, I could work for 2 months and then I'd have 2 months off, and it was how I justified always working, because out of 9.5 years of contracting, I was gone for 7 of it. Right. So kind of like being on the road as a cowboy.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, but for Benghazi, the reason I wanted to go to Libya, I wanted to go to Benghazi, and because it was one of the next up and coming, it was one of the the harder places, or at least the more dangerous. And for some reason, I like to go to those places. I think it's the challenge. Yeah. For me,
because at that time the leadership in Libya was awful.
There was zero, really.
Yeah, it was a vacuum.
Yeah, a complete vacuum. I mean, Benghazi was controlled by about anywhere between 7 and 10 different militias. I mean, one militia controlled the seaport, one controlled the airport, another one controlled the overland traffic, another one, a week or so before, had went out and bought a bunch of cars, painted them up like police cars, got their guys' uniforms, and they ran around like they were cops. And I think most of what they did was extort money out of the locals. And, so every place, and people say, were we on a higher alert status for September 11th? For us, every place we went was September 11th, or could be, because they don't need us as security people otherwise. And right. GRS, Global Response Staff, what our job was is to protect these case officers with the CIA. Yeah. And I always tell this to make sure everybody understands what CIA stands for, and that's the Culinary Institute of America, not that other one. Yeah,
looks so easily confused.
Yeah. No, but so that night I was out in town with a female case officer. We were on a dinner date, meeting a local Libyan couple, and when I got a call from Tyrone, we called him Roan. That's his call sign. We got a call from him on my cell phone that said, "Hey, you need to get back to the annex. Stay away from the consulate." The cell phone was uncontrolled, so it wasn't encrypted or anything, so he didn't want to tell me any more than that.
Sure.
I just knew that if he's going to interrupt a dinner date, that it was going to be pretty significant. So gathered up the female case officer, got in our vehicle, and started heading back. And when we turned the radio on, that's when we really kind of realized how bad things were. And it was, you could hear over the radio what was going on. And the State Department guys were getting attacked. Roughly, their estimate was about 40 armed insurgents. There was explosions, belt-fed machine gun fire. You could hear RPGs. And, about 5 minutes, 10 minutes as we're driving down the road, one of the things that come across that sticks in your head or sticks in my head was this team leader came over and said, if you don't get here now, we're all going to die. And obviously there was a few expletives in there too. You could hear the fear
right
in his voice. And what I didn't know was going on at the time is the rest of the team had already got ready. When they got the call, they immediately got ready and was getting ready to head out the door when Bob, our chief of base, said, you guys don't need to go anywhere. You need to stand down. You need to wait. And the first time I could kind of understand that. Maybe, he's trying to assess the situation. Last thing you want to do is send your security guys over there to help them, and then you get attacked.
Right.
So there's that concern. But after 2 more times of getting told to wait, finally, when they heard what I heard, if you don't get here now, that's what really kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back. And they just left without even asking anymore.
Sure.
And headed over there. They pulled up. They got within about 300 yards down a long road. On each side there was of that block, so to speak, there was a gunfighter road is what we called it, and it's because we'd gotten into a gunfight there before. The other side was Adidas Road, and that was named Adidas because there was a shoe store over there. That was the CIA super secret code words for things. Mm-hmm. And then Consulate Road was what ran in between. So if you used that, no one would know where you're at.
Yeah, of course not.
But they got there and they started receiving gunfire. There was a local militia that was kind of quasi-friendly. He was sitting in the back of a Hilux pickup truck on a Dishka, which is a 12.7 millimeter 50 cal, basically.
Sure.
Shooting that way, and there was another guy down there shooting at him, and both of them were missing each other. The guys tell it, and Tig ended up launching 3 grenades down there on him and destroyed that and cleared the way where they could move down. 2 of them moved to some high ground so they could provide overwatch, and the other 3 moved down and went into the front gate. And while they're doing that, I'm making my way back to the annex, and it was pretty calm. The female case officer, she was a little frazzled at first, and calmed her down a little bit. I needed her eyes, not her mouth running. She keeping an eye out for what threats might address us, and because we had to go down the coast a ways, come back in kind of through the desert.
Sure.
And we had one spot that kind of got a little hairy, is about a mile or 2 from the annex when. Because what happens is they put up these impromptu checkpoints.
Sure.
Trying to figure out who's out there. And so this one just kind of developed right in front of us, and there was no way. It's 2 roads. It's a crossroad in the middle of the desert. And they pulled up just on the edge of town. About 4 or 5 guys jumped out with AKs. And the car in front of me, luckily, just kept going through it, which drew all of their attention, and they all started looking at him. Whoever was in that, which gave us an out to kind of make that turn right there, and we made that without getting observed, and was able to make it back to the annex.
Yeah. And they don't give chase in those situations.
They were so focused. They were so focused on that. It was just a
lucky thing for you to get by.
Yeah. I kind of say it's we had a 7th man on our team that night, and it was the Lord looked out for us a lot of times.
Yeah.
When things that shouldn't have happened. We got through some stuff that we shouldn't have gotten through.
Yeah.
And that was one of them in my mind.
Absolutely. That's insane.
Because this blonde hair, blue-eyed face, you're not going to, it's
you're not a local.
Yeah. And it's not that you can't blend in a little bit at night, but if they're looking that close, it's, they're going to identify.
And basically what they're looking for is people who look foreign.
Yep.
Yeah, because they're going to know you're not there for any other reason but U.S.-based stuff.
Yeah. And So we made it back. I took over security there, you know, and I was on the rooftop there, being able to watch what was going on, you know, seeing the tracer fire and the explosions going on, which was probably one of the harder things I had to do, because where I wanted to be was over there, but I needed to be where I was at to make sure that the 20-odd people there were going to stay alive in case we got attacked during that. And
so you guys were just wildly shorthanded across the board.
Well, for us, we were never really that. I mean, because that's not our job. Our job isn't to go over and help the consulate. I mean, we did that because we knew that they were understaffed and undertrained. Great guys, but the security
just not ready for that type of
not that
engagement.
kind of thing. Yeah, and I think they got overwhelmed, and you know, it's kind of an alligator mouth that, you know, running a parakeet ass kind of thing.
Right.
But so they did, you know, and again, they were great guys, but just not built for that. And that's kind of what caused a lot of the friction with us and our boss.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I'm not going to leave somebody that needs help, that can, I don't know. I look at it kind of, if I can make a difference in somebody's life, I'm going to do that, no matter what the consequences are, because that's just the right thing to do.
Right. Well, these are life or death situations.
Yeah. You know, and I mean, everybody that was in our annex, I mean, they're all weapons qualified. There's 15 or so. I don't know exactly the number was, but I mean, they can defend themselves. At least they should be able to. They got to go through weapons qual.
Right.
We all know how that goes though.
Right.
But, you know, and, so it was really kind of struggling for me. I mean, you know, and people always ask me, you know, what were you afraid of anything, and, you know, afraid of dying or this? And really my biggest fear was not being able to complete my job. And my job was to make sure that these people get to go home.
Right.
You know, and that's really what it was about. And, but luckily, you know, they didn't attack us yet. They repelled 2 more assaults over at the consulate, and after that, they'd been in and out of the building searching for the ambassador. They'd found Sean Smith's body. And during one of the counter assaults over there, the security team for the ambassador, they sent them out, and they made their way back over. And about 10 minutes later, our guys, the rest of my team I was with, came back as well. And so we just came back there and set up security, knowing that most likely they were going to come after us next, because the security team for the ambassador had got ambushed on its way back. So I'm sure they drugged some of those people back with them to our place. And we'd been there I was getting on about 1 o'clock in the morning when the first attack happened. And we were kind of set up into 360, you know, because we got to cover all different avenues of approach. And I was in the northeast corner. Tonto and DB were in an elevated position on top of one of the buildings. There was 4 buildings in our compound. Our compound was pretty small. It was about the size of a football field.
It was a really like luxurious kind of place, though, wasn't it? Comparatively,
compared to, I mean, it was upper scale for Libya.
Yeah.
You know, we had 4 buildings, each one. They were just 1-story buildings. Each one of them had like a little kitchenette and probably 2 or 3 rooms in it, and then kind of like a common area. And then it was inside of a rectangle wall that was about 10 feet high.
Sure.
So I was in an elevated position in the northeast corner, Tonto and DB up here, and Tig had been making his way over to me, and we'd been using, I mean, for us, luckily we owned the night because of night vision.
Yeah.
You know, we could see.
And they're basically AK-47
yeah.
and the occasional RPG or something a little heavier maybe.
And they had a couple belt-fed machine guns, you know, medium heavy, or, you know, not medium-size machine guns that were 7.62. But most of it was, like I said, AK-47. And, you know, we heard them kind of massing over on our eastern flank, and we had asked over the radio, you know, is there any information on, was it friendlies or was it, because, you know, we had a militia that was quasi-friendly called Feb 17, and they were some of the guys that had came over to the consulate, but we figured, okay, are they coming over here? And none of them had showed up. They, you know, I don't know where they went, but we started seeing movement through these houses and trees on our eastern flank. And so with our infrared lasers, we started identifying where targets were. And we were just kind of letting them move up on us as close as possible.
Because you guys could see them, they couldn't see you type of thing.
Yeah, and then we had big floodlights on our outer perimeter. So, it's shining big lights out there about, 50 yards, 30 to 50 yards out.
And then you're using infrared for everything past that.
Mm-hmm. And as they're coming up, one of them had gotten close enough where he threw an IED, improvised explosive device, over the wall.
So he was really close.
Yeah, he had kind of snuck up, it looked like. I think after seeing some of the video after the fact, he'd gotten real close to the wall and kind of tossed it over, and it landed in between me and Tig as Tig's coming over and blew up. And luckily there was no shrapnel in it, and that's really what started the first assault on the annex. And I opened up. Tonto and DB are up here, and we just had them in a crossfire, and we kind of knew we could see where they're at, so we just started putting bullets in them. And I kind of have a rule, is one of my rules. It's probably rule number 2 is, anything we're shooting once is we're shooting at least twice.
Right.
Because, ammo's cheap and life's not.
Right.
So we're putting bullets into them. Tig comes up, he starts shooting, and there were probably 15 or 20 guys maybe, and we made kind of short work of it. And it was really, when I talk about it to people, I usually tell, I grew up shooting prairie dogs on eastern Colorado. That's what it was like. They stick a head up, you shoot them. Yep. Next one comes up. Because
they're pretty poorly trained compared to U.S.
Yeah, they are.
So they were not good at concealing themselves, or
well, and they thought they were, because they didn't think that we. I think, and this is just my opinion, that they felt they were going to be able to come through us like they did over at the over at the consulate. They just took over a U.S. consulate. Those guys.
So they were running high.
Yeah. They've got, look at how bad we are.
Yeah, and how many of you guys? There were, 5 of you?
There were 6 of us.
6 of you,
yeah. Because Glenn's team hadn't showed up yet. And it was after that firefight ended, and we didn't have no major injuries or something. I think I had some cuts on my face just because they were trying to shoot our lights out. And some of the glass hit me in the face. So we were feeling pretty good. We still didn't know where the ambassador was. We did get a call from the guys in Tripoli. It was about 1:00 1:30 when they landed at the Benghazi airport. But they didn't have, they landed on a civilian aircraft that they'd been able to get.
Sure.
And they, now they had to figure out how they were going to get from there to us. And, also figure out, were they going to go to try to find the ambassador? Did we know where he was at? What the whole, and none of them had ever been there before. So they're trying to get vehicles to come to us. We're getting ready. We're feeling pretty good going around, but we did get a phone call from a phone that the ambassador had from a local national who said that the ambassador was at the hospital. And our biggest concern at that point was, at least my first thought was, they're just trying to get us out from our defensive positions.
Yeah, it was a tactic.
Yeah. And so, we sent an asset to go figure out if a local Libyan, and to see if he could verify. And he went and verified that the ambassador was at the hospital, but he is already deceased. He'd sent us some pictures back, and it looked like from those pictures, it looked like he had died of smoke inhalation.
Right.
So we're just getting ready for what is going to come next. And sure enough, an hour maybe had passed, if that, and we start seeing movement again on our northeastern flank, and this time they're coming back at us with probably closer to 30 or so, probably double what they had the first time. But again, now it's, Tig's up there, we're ready, and again, we can see them coming, and just kind of let them get close. And they were coming up on our eastern flank, was where our back gate was. Mm-hmm. And we had a chicane, the Jersey barriers, the cement highway dividers. We had those set out to keep vehicles from getting too close. And the guy come driving up, and they did a real good job. They showed it just like it was in the movie. And guy jumps out and getting ready to throw something at us, and I caught him out of the corner of my eye and put 3 rounds into him. And what he was throwing was another IED, trying to get it at our back wall and blow it up, and put him down, and that started the next firefight.
Yeah.
And I mean, this one lasted a little bit longer because they had a few more people. They were, a little bit better with their tactics, not just running up at us. And, but, again, I mean, there's 4 of us, had them in a crossfire, and I don't know, lasted 15, 20 minutes maybe, and we took most of them out, and they decided to pull back again.
Sure.
And now we're really feeling kind of good. I mean, hey.
Yeah, I mean, there's a significant amount of,
And I'm going around checking on guys. We're kind of all checking on each other, making sure we got food and water and ammo and everything. And that's how I ended up on the rooftop with Ty.
Sure.
Is I'd moved from there and went up there, and Ty went down to do some stuff. He was our medic. He was, because he was a registered nurse as well as a 18 Delta, had been through the 18 Delta course for Special Forces.
Right.
And so he had come back up, and now we're getting towards, I don't know, when he got back up, it was probably closer to 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. We knew Glenn's team had landed. They were making their way to us soon, and it was just kind of quiet for that part of the night. And me and him just kind of talking about how the guys did over there, and he was, and Ty was kind of who we looked up to. He'd had over 20 years as a Navy SEAL, was an instructor at Bud's. Just really great reputation and just a great guy.
Big-time combat vet.
Yeah. And so, and he had said something about how great the guys had done over there. He was like some of the best guys he'd ever fought with, and which was pretty good. Which was a pretty good compliment coming from him.
Yeah.
And he don't give out compliments easy.
Surely not. Yeah.
But so we're sitting there just talking, and then we started talking about our kids. He had a young boy. I think he was about 9 to 12 months old at that time. My little girl was 7 months old. Tig had a set of twins, a boy and girl that were 2 weeks older than my little girl. Tonto had 2 or 3 young kids. Jack had just found out that his wife was pregnant with their 3rd child. And, it's just that time you kind of reflect about home.
Right.
And things like that, and Ty had extended for a second tour, for another week just to cover the ambassadors coming down.
Sure. Because
they didn't have enough guys. So we just kind of talked about that, and that's when Glenn's team rolled up at about 5 a.m. And when they came up, they'd all came in and went inside except for Glenn. And Glenn was that guy that he was going to, if there was a gunfight around, he was going to get in it. But he's also that guy.
Rambo type?
And I don't even know if I'd say Rambo. He just loved shooting.
Yeah.
But he was also that guy that had a smile on his face every minute of the day. He's the guy that's going to, if anybody's feeling down, he's going to bring him up, and I never knew him in person. I just only knew him by reputation.
So that was the first time you actually get to formally meet him.
Yeah. And so he came up on the rooftop, and there was Dave. He was the State Department guy, was up there, myself and Ty, and he came over, and Ty introduced us. He said, yeah, Glenn was a sniper in the teams. I just told him, I says, well, it's, hopefully we're not going to need it, but it's great to have another gunfighter up here. And they stepped to my left and started talking. And the building top was about 30 feet by 40 feet. And we had these ladders that we'd built. They were 1.5 inch square tubing that we'd cut up and welded and then bolted them up to the building. And that's where Dave was over there. And then, I don't know, maybe 5-7 minutes at most, something like that. A rocket hit the back wall right in front of where me and Ty and Glenn were, and a mortar hit the top of the wall right in front of where Dave was just down.
So they had reorganized and went and got heavier artillery.
Yeah, and it was a pretty complex attack. And they had us dead to rights. Opened up with belt-fed machine guns, AK-47s. Ty opened up. He had a belt-fed machine gun. He opened up. I started shooting. Glenn was moving to get separation so we're not all 3 stuck in the same spot. So he was trying to get separation from us, and that's when the next mortar hit, and it hit the rooftop about 15, 17 feet to my right where the wall and the rooftop come together, and that blew up. And I was in the middle of a mag change, just finished it and was starting to stand up, and it kind of knocked me back a little bit. And as I continued standing up, that's when I saw Ty in a fetal position at my feet. And I bring my gun up to start shooting, and that's when I realize I'm injured, because I bring my left arm up, and I don't know, about 6 inches above the top of it, it was kind of hanging off at about a 90-degree angle. And I'm just thinking about needing to shoot, because the first mortar that hit the outer wall injured Dave, the State Department guy. He's out of the fight. Ty's out of the fight. Glenn's moving to get into the fight. So in my mind, I'm the only one shooting. So I'm swinging my arm trying to make it grab my gun and still shoot. And that's when the next mortar hit. And I had glanced over my shoulder and I saw it, and it hit almost in front of Glenn. And he went down. I turned back to start shooting again, and then the third mortar hit. And that one was the first one where I really felt any pain. Felt like I got stung by like 1,000 bees. And I also figured I better get to some cover, because if I don't, then
another one's coming.
Yeah, another one's coming. And luckily, I mean, and again, it was one of those God things. I mean, for some reason they quit. Looking back afterwards, I saw some other video and stuff. The militia that brought Glenn's team in had taken off when the firefight started, that last one, and they headed in the direction where the mortars were coming from. Now, I don't know if they knew and they were going to stop it, or if it was just pure luck or fate, but had they kept firing mortars,
that would have been it.
Yeah, they'd have killed everybody inside the building and on top. And so I'd sat up, the dust was still falling, and trying to get a tourniquet on my arm, and I saw Ty over there, and so I crawled over to see him and see if I could find a pulse on him. And then I didn't, so I sat back up and was going to try to get my tourniquet back on, and that's when I saw Tig come up on the rooftop.
Yeah.
Tig come up, he ran into Dave. I didn't get to see that part, but he found Dave. He put 2 tourniquets on him, one on his arm and one on his leg. They were both almost severed off, saved his life, and then he came over to where I was sitting, and I always tell people, I said, because if they ever hear Tig tell the story, he kind of tells it a little bit different right here.
Sure.
And he says the reason he was coming over towards me next, because he knew where I was, because he heard some whining over there. And I'm like, I always tell people he's lying, because I was over there and I didn't hear no whining at all. But he walks over, and I'm holding my arm up and trying to get the tourniquet on, and I just can't keep it in place. And he comes over and just kind of looks down at me, says, "Hey, you going to quit playing with that thing? You're not going to make it any better." Reaches down, grabs a tourniquet and puts on, and stands me up, says, "Can you get to the ladder?" And and in the back of my mind, I'm still thinking that Ty and Glenn, I'm hoping that Ty and Glenn are still alive.
Right.
And if they were, I knew Tig was going to be able to help him. And so,
because he was okay.
Yeah, Tig was okay, because he wasn't up on the rooftop when it went off, when the mortars hit. He's just because he just came up. He knew that he didn't know if another mortar was coming or not. He just knew guys were injured, and he just came up. I mean, he just put himself into place that he didn't have to if he didn't want to.
Right.
That's just the kind of guy he is. And so I got over to the ladder, and another guy had come up and helped me. He had asked me, he says, "Can you get down on your own?" And stupid me said, "Yeah." And he helps me sit there on the ledge of the rooftop, and my feet are there, and the ladder's right here to my right. And that's when I kind of figured, how in the hell am I going to get onto that ladder? And so I figure if I just lean down and hook my good arm on that top rung and slide off, I'll turn and my feet will land on the ladder and things will be good. And the way I look at it is, because I don't mind if I go out in a gunfight. Pile of brass around me, bad guys, no problem. But the last thing I want my obituary to say is survived gunfight, survived 3 mortars, fell off the roof and broke his neck, right? That is
anticlimactic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, hey, how'd your dad die? Well, man, he went through this whole thing, and then he fell off the rooftop and broke his neck. Yeah, slipped on a banana peel. Right, So that's the last thing I want. So I knew that, I hooked my arm on there, and I slid off, and everything was working great. My body turned, but my feet missed the rungs. But I didn't fall much, because I had a death grip with my good arm.
Right.
Pulled myself back up, climbed down, and as I'm going around the building, another guy was coming out, and he gets me and escorts me inside, make sure I get inside, and I lay down on the floor, and no one's doing nothing. They're just looking at me, and they have all the lights off and just flashlights on me. And I'm like, hey, somebody needs to get my clothes cut off because I know I'm bleeding from other places than just my arm.
Right.
And that's when the female case officer I was with, she's the only one that moved, and she ran to the med room, and I could hear her throwing stuff around looking for it. And she yells out, hey, Oz, where's the medical shears? And I'm like, they're in the first set of shelves, third one from the top. And it's one of those things. There's certain things I know where things are. I call it my 6 Ps because it's,
right.
Prior planning prevents piss poor performance.
Right.
And I would always take a water bottle, cut the top off, and tape it to some place, and that's where 3 things would go in there: medical shears, morphine, and tourniquets.
Right.
Because those are the 3 things I know I can save a life with.
Right.
And so she grabbed those, and she comes running back, and about that time, our deputy chief of base had flicked open his buck knife, and he's like, here, I'll cut your clothes off. And this guy's shaking like a dog crapping a peach seed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, boss, please just put that, because the last thing goes through my head again, there's my obituary. Survived all that and then got stabbed by a guy trying to cut his clothes off, right? I'm not going to have that. And so the boss put it away, and she come over. They got all my clothes cut off and found all the other holes. And, and I said, if it's squirting, stop it. If it's oozing, don't worry about it. Get all the squirters stopped. And ended up I think we counted about 20, 25 holes. Got most of them stopped up. I got hit in the neck and 4 or 5 times in the chest and stomach and up and down both arms and legs, and that was the 1,000 bee stings I got.
It makes sense.
I had to go in to get, kind of an off note, I had to go in to get x-rays the other day, and
still stuff in there.
Oh yeah, I counted in my neck and chest, there's about 10 or 15, I think 10 or 12 10 pieces of metal, and then there's another 10 in this arm, and then the legs I didn't get, but I never realized there was that much still in there. But
and they just leave it, huh?
Yeah, because it causes, it's easier, because what happens is the body will just encapsulate it most cases.
Yeah.
And if it ain't moving, it's not going to hurt anything.
Just white blood cells attack it until it's calcified, basically.
Pretty much. And, and it'll just stay there for good. Now, if you ever have to go in for an MRI or something, then that could make them move, because it's, an MRI is a big magnetic thing, and it makes them move around. And so they don't like doing MRIs on people with shrapnel in them.
Right.
But, we got me taken care of. They brought Dave down. Dave was in bad condition. Dave was, he had lost a lot of blood in and out of consciousness. And about 7 o'clock in the morning, finally, they'd gotten Ty and Glenn's bodies off the rooftop, got everybody loaded up and headed to the airport. And we had that private plane out there, but it wouldn't carry everybody. So we got out there. I rode in the back of a Hilux pickup truck, which is kind of like a Toyota Tacoma.
Sure.
On a stretcher. And there was actually a picture of me I found. I think ABC had posted it online, because one of the militia guys that helped us get to the airport had taken a picture of me in the back of that truck. But it was kind of interesting that was my first public appearance, I guess.
Right, yeah, that was your first one.
Pretty much buck naked.
Well, at least they didn't get cut off with a buck knife, because you've probably not been in the photo.
Yeah, exactly.
He would have slipped for sure.
Yeah, he would have. But we got out there and got on. We loaded up on a plane and headed to Tripoli. And my first real life-saving surgery for me and Dave, the State Department guy, was Libyan hospital by Libyan doctors.
Really?
Yeah. And
were you nervous about that one?
At that point,
it didn't even matter.
I didn't care. They wheeled me in. The thing that hurt the most out of all of it was the tourniquet.
Really?
Yeah. Because when you put one on, and I've put them on other people, and that it's that. I knew that that's what it was going to be, but. Because you got to tighten to stop the blood, you have to tighten that thing where it compresses those arteries to the bone.
Yep.
And it's amazing how tight you can get it, and that thing was what hurt the most the whole time.
Yeah. How long was it on you? The entire time, essentially?
Yeah. So from about 5:15 till 10:30.
Yeah. So a good 5 hours.
Yeah. And they wouldn't, because I wanted them to loosen it up because it hurt so bad, and they wouldn't do that.
Yeah, you bleed out. Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna any clots that formed are going to get pushed out because you're letting that blood go out.
Right.
So we got everybody but the other shooters out. So Tig and the guys that survived, they were able to recover through an asset. We were able to recover the ambassador's body. They got him out, and the guys, there was the rest of the team, our team and Glenn's team and Sean Smith, Ty, Glenn, and Ambassador Stevens, the 4 dead. A C-130 had landed, and the guys figured that they thought that was, first U.S. aircraft come in, and the thing came down, took a right turn, and there was instead of an American flag on the back of it, on the tail fin, it was a Libyan flag.
Oh, wow.
And I will say the one thing the CIA does good is we had a lot of cash.
Yeah.
A lot of $100 bills, and so they went over and talked to the pilot and co-pilot and convinced them that it was probably financially beneficial for them to fly them back to Tripoli, and so they loaded everybody up with the bodies and brought them back to Tripoli. And the last guys, that's how they got out, was on a Libyan aircraft.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's one of the craziest parts. You just wouldn't think that things would be that erratic in an organization like that.
You wouldn't, and I mean, there's a lot of excuses or a lot of reasons. I mean,
let's take a quick bathroom break before we get into that stuff, because that was like going to be the transition.
Okay.
I drank so much and I'm so into the story that if I don't go now, then this is a small room. It's going to smell like piss. It's going to smell like piss. Obviously, we flew Mark out, and there is no way that we're not going to have a long conversation. So stay tuned in a few days for part 2. This has been The Gauge, hosted by me, Chance Conrado, produced and edited by our guy Ty Yeager. Shout out to the executive producers Dustin Pointer and Cody Denton. Marketing and content produced by Riley Chone. Make sure to rate and review this podcast, as well as follow The Gauge on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And make sure to subscribe to The Gauge wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you guys next time.